happen to be Muslim, so Donald Trump insulted his parents. Or John McCain, the military hero that Donald Trump insulted. I mean, how many of those milestones on the road to what they have now?
In the next 8 minutes, you're going to hear a masterclass in a specific rhetorical technique, the strategic use of apparent coincidence to invite listeners to draw their own conclusions without making direct accusations. Watch how the host repeatedly frames a donation story using phrases like, "We're being asked to believe," a classic device that shifts the burden of plausibility onto the audience. You'll also hear callers engaging in what philosophers call argument from consequence, and a fascinating comparison drawn between UK and US political scandals. Pay attention to how numbers are contextualized or deliberately stripped of context to shape perception.
£5 million. No, fine, nothing to see here.
I think there's been a concerted effort in this country over decades, if not centuries, to really keep people essentially to not educate people and not give them access to the truth, and worse still, not give them access to the information. So people see 5 million, just like they saw 250 million on the side of a bus. And they have no sense of how big that is in comparison. So in comparison to Starmer, because the numbers aren't presented like that. They're presented like, oh, it's just 5 million. It's just, it's just that amount, and it's not presented next to the amount that Starmer apparently was given. So there's the comparison.
Well, he wasn't given any money. He accepted £2,485,000 worth of spectacles and suit. £2,485 worth.
And worse still, I think there's actually a certain class in this country who have access to power and to the media, who almost see this kind of corruption and think, oh, okay, actually we do want that because we can get a slice of it.
Why do you think we're in this business? Why do you think we're in this business?
Get a slice of the pie. Yeah, if you look at what happened during COVID, people literally saw COVID and thought, how can I make money out of this? And almost wanted to, they were almost happy that someone like Boris was in power, because it meant that they could be corrupt and take as much as they could from the state and bleed the state dry. And that's what's happened time and time again. You see it with the privatisation of things like water. I mean, these are fundamental things that have been brewing in our society for a long time, and that have set the scene for this.
And you can't do the really bad stuff unless you've seeded the ground beforehand. And we've seen what happened in the United States of America. You mentioned water companies. The Asset Class by Hetty O'Brien looks at how private equity turned capitalism against itself. And Hetty will be joining me at about 12:30 today, Josephine, to talk about her new book. I have a feeling it'll be right up your Strasse, and it looks at some of that stuff that Josephine just touched on. If you are in the business of making money, that's all that you care about, then that's all that you care about. You don't care about whether or not the rivers are full of sewage. You don't care about whether or not care homes are unfit for purpose. You don't care about whether or not the railways run. You just care about money. You want money. And if you can make more money by having a politician in your pocket, then you will try to get a politician in your pocket, which is one form of political donation to political parties. Some people, I think, make a ton of money and want to give something back to society. I can't think of many off the top of my head. I think Clive Hollick, former Labour peer, he was quite a good example of this. Bill Gates, I suppose, in some ways, before he was deeply tarnished by his appearances in the Epstein files. Sometimes you make a ton of money and you think, I'd like society to be a better place. Other times you make a ton of money and therefore you make donations accordingly. Other times you make a ton of money and you think, do you know what, I'd really like a ton more money. And then you make your donations accordingly. And the rest of us sit here, I don't know, like mugs? James is in Leeds. James, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Oh, God, I'm so angry. I've been angry about this ever since I heard about it.
And how do you maintain, forgive me for the crassness of this, how do you maintain your anger when all around you are staying calm or not caring?
Well, I'm becoming hopeless, James. I'm sorry, but I'm just becoming hopeless.
Yeah.
I find it. Ultimately, I think with this story, the reason I said I was going to call in is that the size of the donation is shocking, and the other donations as well. But the key to all of this is why that money's being given and the potential dangers to what could happen if we had a prime minister who was prepared to deregulate the cryptocurrency market. And apparently the figures show that this donor, could become the 30th richest man in the world. Now, we have no proof that there's a direct link between the donations and what may happen.
No, and that will be denied by all involved.
Yes,
it's just a coincidence that the bloke who gave him 5 million quid secretly will become one of the richest men on the planet as a consequence of policies that he will introduce. That's what we're being asked to believe. It's important that we understand what we're being asked to believe. I make no judgment. I make no comment on the plausibility of what we're being asked to believe. But we're being asked to believe that it's an extraordinary coincidence.
But yes, and on the other hand, you have I believe a millionaire himself, Lord Ali, who gave £200,000. Well, what was he doing that because he wanted some financial return on that? It's just that doesn't hold up.
Doesn't matter, does it? That's the thing. And I think we also, I don't know whether we sound naive or defeated, or the people who claim that they don't care or that they welcome this or that there's nothing to see here. I mean, how deep do you have to dig into them to actually understand how they can't care about the things that you care about, regardless of who is doing them? Someone gives Keir Starmer secretly 5 million quid, and then by complete coincidence, Keir Starmer announces that when he becomes Prime Minister, he's going to bring in laws that will make you one of the richest people on the planet. How can you not care about that?
Well, you can't care if you don't know. And I think that's getting back to it's the fact that, I'm sure that a large proportion of the electorate who are going to go out and vote the day after tomorrow.
Whoa, we're not saying anything about that. It's just me being paranoid. I hear you, but we're not discussing anything to do with Thursday's elections. But I mean, we can certainly speculate about the sagacity or otherwise of our fellow men and women. And I wish, again, that we had the technology to count how many people are hearing about this for the first. I mean, I've done it on the show. I did it on the show towards the end of last week, but then you get the long bank holiday weekend. He manages to duck out of interviews that had previously been scheduled without providing any meaningful excuse. He offers up some challengeable claim about his own personal security, which was also the reason he gave for why he couldn't have constituencies in his surgeries in his constituency. So either he's spent the money on security or he hasn't spent the money on security. And of course, the claim that his home had been firebombed, a terrible, terrible claim that so far we've been unable to establish which police service that was reported to. And it will just go away like it did with Trump. I think when you look back on Donald Trump, what's the thing that you think should have broken it? Is it the grabbing women by their, I'm not going to say the word on the radio, boasting about sexual assaults effectively? Something that Nigel Farage defended, of course, and inevitably. Was it that? Was that when you thought, well, that's got to be it now? Or you look back now and think, well, that should have been it. That should have finished things. The abuse of the disabled newspaper reporter doing a sort of impression of his symptoms. I come back often to the Gold Star military veteran, the dead soldier, who happened to be Muslim. So Donald Trump insulted his parents. Or John McCain, the military hero that Donald Trump insulted. I mean, how many of those milestones on the road to what they have now?
What you just witnessed showcases several key rhetorical strategies. First, the incredulous coincidence framing, repeating "we're being asked to believe," forces listeners to consciously evaluate plausibility rather than passively accept claims. Second, scale anchoring. The caller's point about the 350 million Brexit bus illustrates how isolated numbers lose meaning without comparison points. Third, the normalization milestone argument applied to Trump, listing moments that should have been disqualifying, is a rhetorical inventory technique used to demonstrate cumulative erosion of standards. Critically, notice what the host does not do. He doesn't allege direct quid pro quo. He invites inference while explicitly disclaiming judgment. Whether you find this rigorous or rhetorically slippery is itself a useful question for sharpening your own critical thinking.